Alrighty, guys, we are back right on time, Thursday afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern, as usual, with another PDOCS live stream series episode. As I talked about in the last couple of days, I think Tuesdays when I dropped the topic, we're going to be going over sales without actually selling, or what I call seamless sales. And, as I talked about this a little, um, I think, a lot of things have evolved, and if your sales team isn't evolving, you're probably having struggles. You're probably not hitting the same numbers. I've seen a lot of sales teams from companies totally crash, and companies go under because they're not evolving and they're kind of staying in the past. So, this is going to be kind of a hybrid training, right? Like PDOCS is the group we're in, and we're going to be going through certainly a lot of PDOCS stuff. But, as I get to the bottom, here, it's also going to be a lot of sales lab frameworks and what I do on sales calls, what I build for my team. And depending on the amount of time you have, I'll try to dive into some of the stuff as well of like the internal structure and some of the things I'm doing with my team members, depending on how long this takes. And again, guys, if you're just hopping in, I'm going here live in the group, and I'm not really monitoring the comments too much, but I will be checking back at my phone, probably in 10-minute intervals. So if you have any questions, anything you want me to elaborate on as I'm going, just drop it in the comments, and I will be checking them periodically. But again, what we really want to dive into is selling without actually selling, or sales without actually selling in the blueprint. And there's really 8 steps to this. I didn't actually document it till today just because I have it in so many segmented places, or it's kind of in my brain. But then I just sat down today and just went through our process here in my lunch break and just built out the 8 steps that we keep doing. And I want to elaborate and break down examples and stuff so this all makes sense. This is a very simple document, right? These 8 steps, if you want to go back through them, I'll go drop it down in the comments, or if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the description. And I may mention some other resources or cover some quickly that we're not going to go into depth. If there's anything I say, hey guys, this is something, you can have, just comment below whatever the title of that particular resource is, and happy to either send it over to you or drop it down in the comments or the description or whatever. Again, when I go through these, I usually end up going to 4 or 5 different tabs or resources or platforms, and someone's like, hey, I wanted that or whatever. So just drop it in the comment. But again, and if you have any questions on this, but let's start off with number 1 here. And this, you guys may have heard me talk about this. I still see very few companies and brands focusing on this, but focus on the prospect journey, and then in parentheses, as well as the customer journey, right? So part of that goes back to simply, and this will look familiar to a lot of you guys, and no, this isn't a micro commitment training per se, but a lot of that goes back to this process and how we stand out when we go through this. And you'll see as I keep talking, and I think it's even on the other document I just clicked off of that I'll go back to in a minute. My whole process, again, sales without selling, there's other phrases for that, right? No pitch sales, zero pressure sales, right? There's all kinds of little euphemisms or analogies that you can make in similar phrases, but it really comes all back down to what we're going to go over today. And that's how to stand out in the process, how to not be salesy, how to offer solutions, value, and really just how to get all the way to the end of the finish line. You'll see when we go through all these 8 steps. And they're all built into these 6 steps, actually, and I can kind of show that as I go through the other 8. It's just some of them are kind of a little more extensive, or there might be 2 parts to number 2 here, right? That I would explain as I'm going through this training, and then in the document it's already listed in 2 parts. But again, just a quick reference for anyone who's never seen this. This is kind of the usual sales method a lot of companies use. Whatever they do to get their engagement, ad, content, email, LinkedIn message, I don't care. They get engagement. Someone says, yeah, I'm interested in your XYZ, in lowering my costs, in whatever, right? Then you're going to have a quick little triage conversation, which I highly recommend. Or you could go through an application form depending on your business and how well that works. And then you usually go to a sales call, right? So we first off have a 6-step process where steps 2, 4, and 5 were not in the other one. If this was that other process, this would be 1, 3, and 6. That were those 3 steps. So assigning the new frame means once somebody comes in, we have to show them that what they think is the real problem really isn't. That's a symptom or surface level problem. This is the root or the real problem, and then we kind of assign a new frame. That all being said, I think this is your solution and maybe not this, right? And I've gone through hundreds of examples of that. Then we take them to a triage call, we go through pre-qualifying, and we go through some of the things again that are going to be in the other document. And then after the triage call, which always really has two primary objectives, we're doing more in there, but number one is to pre-qualify and make sure this person is actually a good fit. We can help them, and we're probably the best suited to help them. And then number two is always getting a soft yes in terms of financial commitment. And I always say the phrase, hey, John, if when we have this call Thursday at 2 p.m. with Mark, my advisor, and everything makes sense and you see a clear path on how to grow from 10 to 25K months, would there be anything that would stop you from investing further on that call? Right? So that's just a good word track or verbiage to use for a soft yes. You can make whatever variation you want. So when we do that, we're also setting the call and we're sending homework. And I usually have two different assets between here. There will be one that they would receive, between steps 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, depending on my funnel. That can vary, but it's before the first call with us. They would watch a smaller video, more specific to the symptom level problem that we if we did it between 2 and 3, as we should, it would be more about that real problem, because let's just say they thought their problem was, ad costs, when they're really, we did a little pressure test and they're really not charging enough. If just by charging more and tweaking their offer, it would automatically offset those ad costs. That now becomes the real problem. And then I send a little training showing how I can help them double their offer and the way I pressure test it. So when they get on that call, I can give them more applicable information. You can ask more questions about this specifically, right? That's just one example off the top of my head. That could be a few different things. Then after the triage call, when we've done those other two objectives and make sure they're a good fit, I will send a homework that's more of a product or program, I should say program overview of the particular program or service or offer that I am likely going to present at the end on step 6 when we get to the closing call or the strategy session or whatever you want to call it, right? So first is just a more specific, quick little Loom video or whatever that is showing like how you solve that problem and why, what they thought was the real problem isn't, just reiterating and showing some more about that and giving them some intrigue and some value. So when they show up to that call, you can start right off with your triage call when you do it this way of, hey, John, did you get a chance to go through that 6-minute video I sent you? Awesome. So what was your biggest takeaway? Okay, great. It was more about how the offer is packaged, priced, and the perceived value. Yeah, no, I totally get it. At least 2 of those 3 are relevant, and maybe 3 and the 4th one you didn't mention with how it's positioned. So I'd be happy to dive into that, more here on this call and give you some suggestions and recommendations at the end. But I always start off with trying to ask a few quick questions so I can really assess what the best recommendation and suggestion is. Right now, I only have some vague information, right? So again, multiple variations, and I have little frameworks and scripts for the triage call, for the sales call. Let me know if you want to see those. These are just kind of off the top of my head and 100% in alignment with our frameworks. I said script, I mean framework. Step 5 is an alignment phase. That's just, especially when you have more than one sales rep, this isn't always as applicable, or it wouldn't be done the same if you are a solopreneur or a one-person sales team and you take both calls. But normally, as I said here, hey, if I set you with Mark Friday, whatever, so my alignment phase is, hey, Mr. Prospect, I'm going to loop you in a 3-way messenger thread with Mark. That way you guys are connected. And if anything, one of you guys running late, a call's running over, something comes up, you guys already have a chain of communication open. In addition, I'm going to let Mark know everything we talked about here. That way you don't have to rehash that information and you could really get rocking and rolling. So make sure you check out this video. Mark's looking forward to meeting with you Friday, 2 p.m. EST. Boom, boom, boom. So do all that and set all those expectations before the call, and you're going to have a lot more success. I'm probably already spending more time on the micro commitments because I always do than I needed to. But that's what I'm kind of talking about, is building out that process. And a lot of that is, again, on this document here, will be the steps below as well, and they'll kind of equate to those other steps. But I wanted to highlight other aspects that come in. So, build out a prospect journey that can stand out from the competition. The other reason I say that, lastly, before I move down, is I get on a lot of sales calls, and, the great reaction I get because we do this is, damn, Ray, this call was so much different. This didn't feel like a sales call. You didn't even pitch me anything. You never even told me the price. I was like, what does the price matter? We haven't even figured out if this will help you or how it'll help you. It doesn't matter if I say $10 or $10,000 right now, right? So just having a conversation, which goes back into the process being ethical, integral, and solution-based. And that's how we always operate. It's not persuasion. It's not strong arm tactics. It's not, making someone feel bad about their own mindset if they don't invest in your program, and then they have buyer's remorse and they come back and be a chargeback. None of that stuff. You can see in every aspect I'm going through, when I was going through those 6 steps, the way my verbiage, the way I'm talking, that is all built into everything that we're doing in this process and is super, super important. Now, we're never really looking for necessary calls to action. Now we are, but we do them subtly based off recommendations, suggestions, and helping you get to the next step in your process, to the closer to that result, lower lead costs, more revenue, more time, whatever we're providing, right? So if we're always coming from the place of providing recommendations and suggestions, it allows us a lot better opportunity to provide value and do so from the authoritative frame, as I talked about when running a triage call, and more prescribing, like I just did in that instance. Hey, Bob, based on everything you talked about, what I recommend for you, number one, is check out this little 5-7 minute video. This goes into our Blueprint Accelerator program, which shows you exactly how to get from those 10 to 25K months. More specifically, speak with Mark, my senior advisor, as we discussed, and he can build out the whole strategy, the timeline, expectations, and how our program can help you hit those goals. Are you open to doing that? And do you think that would help you get closer to your goals, my man? Yeah, right. Excellent, right? And then I go into the homework, the alignment, the soft yes, all that stuff. So I'm providing value throughout the whole process, right? As I said, between step 2 and 3, I'm giving them a resource that's going to solve a problem, that's going to let them see another way, that's going to let them get more confirmation that they're right. What Ray talked about is the real problem, and what I thought is more of a symptom or surface level problem. I got to solve this first, and that might not even be a problem, right? So, and when we're doing this, this is really important to ask substantive questions that elicit responses that are essential to the process. So let me explain, because that could definitely confuse a lot of people. And it kind of goes right into step 6. But what I mean by that is, like, I usually start a call once I'm introduced and done a little icebreaker of, hey, Bob, you got on this call with Audience Lab, right, to find out more about our data and how it could possibly inject into your ad campaigns. So just before we go any further, just to make sure, we're not wasting any of our time, you are currently looking to scale and grow here in 24 and going into, closing out Q4 of 24 and going into 25. Oh, yeah, right, we definitely are. Okay, great. I just like to preface that because we're really only looking to embed this technology and work with companies looking to grow and scale. There are a lot of people out there right now that are happy. They're standing pat. They're complacent, right? Those usually aren't the best fits. So thanks for clarifying that, Bob, right? Hey, that all being said, again, and then I go back into what I was saying so I can give best suggestions, and then I get into some questions. And I always build out somewhere, and you guys have seen this in other trainings if you've watched, about how I build out the discovery or the intelligence gathering phase within the sales framework. And there's usually about 6 to 8 data points, right? Could be, what's your offer and who do you serve? Could be how many clients you currently working with and how many would you like to be? Could be what's your current revenue and where would you like it to be? Could be what are you currently trying for lead gen? Okay, you're doing organic and cold email, Facebook and cold email. Cool. Tell me, what do you like about that process? What's been successful? All right, awesome. On the flip side of that, what don't you like, or where do you feel like there's some of the challenges with that organic process, right? So a quick 5 or 6 little 2-part questions like I just did, depending on your offer. Again, I can't tell you exactly what that will be for your offer, but I can give you hundreds of examples or show you frameworks. I build that out custom to each particular offer and niche within, again, our framework. But yeah, and then also, to go into 6 and 7 and more 6, tie downs are super important. So I've already tied him down to saying he wants to grow, right? Just off the call. That was a non-invasive, non-salesy, sleazy question. But if at the end he starts to tell me, hey, Ray, I don't really know if now's the right time. We're not really in growth mode. What are you talking about? You just told me at the top of the call you were looking to scale here into close out 24 and into 25. So what's changed between 20 minutes ago and now? Right? These are the ways we can hold them accountable by the words that came out of their mouth, right? Not us telling them, but us holding them accountable to what they told us. So another way I do that is, like, once I've done my kind of intel or discovery phase and we dive into the problems that they're facing and we start to dive into the solutions that we offer, I'm going to get into, like, hey, Bob, so do you feel like if you could lower your cost per lead and cost per acquisition, that your total ROAS would be over 2x, your ad spend or whatever they're looking for, right? So I'm like tying them down to a very specific thing. If you had this, do you think you could accomplish this? If you had accountability, do you think you could lose 10 pounds? If you had somebody managing your Facebook ads, do you think a professional media buyer can do better than your cousin, right? Whatever it is, like, it's tying them down to that one thing. And then later when we get to the solution, and they're going to be like, I'm not really sure if I need it. Wait a minute, you just told me if your cost per lead and acquisition were down, and you said 100%, that's where temp checks come in, right? And you said you were at 10 out of 10 in the efficacy of my program. then why would we not move forward today? What's changed, right? So, again, it's just holding them accountable. Temp checks, I usually only do, I see people mix these in multiple times in sales calls. And again, I'll reiterate this lots. There's no right or wrong way to do sales. There's multiple ways. There's ways that I find are, again, more ethical, integral, solution based, more personable, more relational, less salesy, right? And I only like to mix in one temp check. It's really after I've done my presentation and I'm like, hey Bob, that's kind of what we do to help you get from 10 to 25K months. Does that all make sense? Any questions on that? No, Ray, that totally makes sense. No, I don't really have any questions. Cool. So what was your biggest takeaway about what I just said, and what do you like most? Well, Ray, I like how you embed your micro commitment process into companies to dial in the quantity and the quantity and the quality of leads that come through the funnel. I think that would be cool embedded into my business. Cool. So if you feel like you had a micro commitment process and the other aspects of my program I ran through embedded into your business and all ironed out, you could get from those 10 to 25K months. Okay, awesome. So tell me, on a scale of 1 to say 10, 1, Ray, you're ugly, let's hang up now. 10, I need this in my business yesterday. Where do you think you fall on that scale of how this would help you grow? Well, Ray, I'm a 9 out of 10. Whatever it is, when you've done it right, you should be getting 8s or higher here. And there's a few different ways to handle this. I don't really want to go super deep into it, but if they give me less than an 8, okay, so you're a 7 out of 10. That means a couple things. You somewhat believe in this and you see the efficacy. So let me ask you, why am I a 7 and not a 4? What did you actually like about the program? Then they're going to reiterate. Okay, so let me ask you if there's anything not included here or anything you feel like I didn't include in terms of support or resources you need to be closer to a 10 out of 10. Well, Ray, I felt like I need a little more one-on-one support, and you mentioned these were group. Oh, well, actually, each student into the premium package gets the one-on-one kickoff call, they get the one-on-one offer creation call, and the one-on-one knowledge gap call. After that, and you have your one-on-one strategy, it's much better to do this in a group setting because you're going to see other people's ideas and spitball them and be able to evolve and see what's working. But those are the 3 real custom one-on-one calls. So maybe I didn't mention that. Oh no, I didn't know we had those. You only mentioned the kickoff call. I didn't know I got an offer and a messaging call as well. Yeah, okay. Okay, now that you know that, right? Where would you say you are? Oh yeah, I'm closer to a 9 out of 10. Okay, awesome. So again, then later if they tell me they're not ready to move forward, they don't believe in the efficacy. It's like, you just told me 5 minutes ago you were a 9 out of 10, right? So and this is how we get the prospect to tell you they need your service rather than you tell them, which a lot of sales reps, they're like, hey Bob, you need this accelerator program to get to 25K months. Like, you saying that is just building so much sales friction and resistance, it's not even funny. Hopefully nobody's doing it, but I still hear it when I listen to other, usually entry-level reps, but I still hear on-call audits, especially before I start working with somebody. But, that's the same thing of, hey man, if you felt like you had the accelerator blueprint program built into your business, you could hit that goal, cool. And if you hit that goal, is it safe to say that you could then remove yourself from the sales process and replace yourself and just focus on fulfillment and go to the next level? Awesome, right? So now that we have all that said, Bob, is there any reason we wouldn't move forward today? So again, they just told me that they could accomplish this if they had my stuff. And then it gets very simple into overcoming objections. And again, which I said in this process, guys, I don't really get many sales objections, which is why I said which are few and far between when you follow this process. It usually comes to diving into finances and making make sense, right? And actually just sent Jordan, one of my newer private PDOCS students, a personal training, or sorry, a training of me and Jesse running through this in depth, just the diving into finances resource and exactly how to do that. Literally get people to share their screen and show you what's available in their bank account, in their credit cards, in their 401k in certain cases. And it's just really having an open and honest discussion. So I'll dive through that briefly, and I can send the resource to people if you want the diving into finances. Let me know in the comments. Again, whether you're watching replay, live, YouTube, Facebook, yada, yada, yada. Really quick before I go into that, and I'll take a little breather and just check the comments. Guys, if you joined late and maybe before I said this, if you have any questions, any resources you want, anything you want me to elaborate on more that I didn't explain clearly, just drop something there in the comments and I'll be happy to cover it. So I'm just going to go take a look in the group real quick, see if we got anything. I see a couple comments. So Jordan, I want to see them. Jordan, just specify or send me a DM. I assume they close at 8 or higher. Do you still say this anyway? So yeah, okay. So the temp check, there's a couple other things to that. Again, when they're an 8 or higher, usually I'll just go in right into that last part, right? Okay, so you're an 8 out of 10. That lets me know again, Jordan, you see the efficacy, and I did a pretty good job presenting, and it's pretty clear. Is that safe to say? Yeah, Ray, that's safe to say. Is there anything that's missing or anything I didn't cover, anything not included, why you're not closer to a 9 or a 10, Jordan? Well, Ray, again, because a lot of times what happens, guys, is when we do our pitch or our presentation, especially the way I teach it, we tie it down and we only present like one or two aspects of our deliverables that are really going to solve problems one and two. We should and gloss over the other deliverables and the other features, but sometimes we either don't cover everything in our program or we just don't emphasize and it kind of goes over their head, right? So I always, usually when I do that, they're like, well, Ray, I wish I had a tracking sheet and metrics. I was like, oh, once you get in the program, that's right in the Kajabi. Sorry, I didn't show you that. I don't have the time on this to run you through every resource you have access to. But yeah, we do tracking and accountability, and we keep you accountable on the weekly coaching calls. That all being said, where do you now stand, right? So if they're on the higher end of that spectrum, I just go right into what's missing, or what do you feel like you need to, or what did I leave out that would get you closer to a 10, or, or would it get you closer to feel like 100% you could get success in getting that. And usually it comes down to some support or some resource that you probably can do or already provide, and you just didn't mention it right away. It's only like when they have, especially if you get a real low one, like if somebody's like a 4, that usually means one of two things. You either somehow got this far in your process with the wrong person, which shouldn't happen, but it does and it can, or you just did a really bad job on the sales call and you didn't really have much of a strategy or a framework. But again, what you can do is get them talking about what they like. Okay, I'm a 4 out of 10. That doesn't sound too great. So did I just not explain things clear, or do you not see the value? I would start with that, and then I'd say, okay, but you are a 4, so there's at least something that like, because I could have been a 1 or a 2 or a 3, correct? Yeah, correct. So what at least did you like that you gave me a 4 for? And then once they start talking about what they liked in your program, you can elaborate and expound upon that. Again, that rarely happens, and could happen to anybody. Can't remember last time I got probably a number below 7. And sometimes you'll just get tough people. Like I'll get people that are 100% bought in, and you'll always get this. I'm probably kind of like this myself, but I'll never give somebody a 10 out of 10. I'll always, even if I'm 100%, I'll give you a 9 out of a 10 because you always could have done something better. And that's how I always try to strive to do. No matter how good I host my client sessions, my sales call. Matter of fact, I just got off one with a monthly recurring revenue high ticket DAS client, and I always say to them at the end of the call, is there anything I didn't do, or is there anything I didn't explain clearly that you need me to elaborate on, or anything I could have done better? Because even though when I know I nail my calls, I'm always looking for feedback and how I can get better. The market becomes more sophisticated, things evolve, which is why I'm really doing this whole training. It's because things have evolved. It's about, as I said, the quote from Brad Pitt's character Billy Bean in the movie Moneyball: adapt or die, right? And a lot of sales teams aren't. They're staying in their you can use all kinds of phrases. They're in their bro marketing phase, or they're stuck to what was working in 2020, and they're just dying as dinosaurs. It's just like certain marketing people. They're still old school marketing people, still doing mailers and door knockers. And not to say those don't work. Door knocking certainly works in certain niches and industries. Spending money on radio where you're hitting an audience of 100,000 where only 6,000 are your ideal clients. Like there's a lot of outdated marketing being done. There's a lot of outdated sales processes being done. And, internally what we do at PDOCS is, opening up that feedback loop and always having that communication line and feedback loop open between marketing and sales, really lets us keep evolving with the market. And that's why we're always getting feedback and running different campaigns and hooks and everything I could go into. But yeah, then when it's time to dive into finances specifically, it's like, usually this will come up when it's like, you get to the price. Let's just say it's 5K at the end, right? All right, so everything made sense, man. You told me you were a 9 out of 9. You told me, or 9 out of 10, whatever. You told me you could accomplish your 25K goal if you had a program like this. The best news now for you, Jordan, here it is. The investment's only 5K. That's a one-time purchase, and you get everything included: the support, the curriculum, 90 days with us working together, building out those processes, fleshing out your offer, your messaging, everything you need to scale. So will that be credit or debit? So first off, I just go in and lay out the price, what to expect, and I future pace them as I did there, the results you should expect. We've already discussed it, right? And then I assume the sale. Now, if I'm not getting any what I would call outside objections outside of finance, which are more logistical, right? Which again, that's what that question goes back to in the soft yes in the triage. When you ask that there, you're actually asking a no, right? The way I worded it, is there any reason you wouldn't be able to invest if everything made sense, right? Outside of finances. And they might tell me my business partner, my spouse, they might dive into finances right then and say they only have a little bit flexible or available, right? But you're trying to suss out objections there so they don't come up here, number one. But you should only get logistical objections, generally speaking, when they're not a 9 or a 10. They're not really bought in. They're going to come up with more. But once they're like, Ray, I'm really all in, but I just can't swing 5K. I just don't, I don't have it available. Okay, so if all things aside, and you had a bag of cash right next to you with 5K sitting there, you would get started in the program today and just hand it over. Am I hearing you right, Jordan? Yeah, yeah, totally, man. If I had the cash, I'd be all in. That's so. If I can make it make sense financially and break that down and split up the payments, is that something we can do? Well, if I can afford it still, what are we talking about? Well, yeah, totally. Let's. I want to work within your budget. A, I don't want your account to go negative, and B, I don't want to take your food off your family's table or your mortgage payment, man. I only want you to invest in something if it makes sense. I know we're going to have that money back to you in a return in no time, but regardless, it has to make sense for you and your household, 100%. That all being said, are you open to just having an honest discussion, Jordan, about finances, what's available, and where you're at? So whether it's today, tomorrow, or next week, we can actually build out a game plan and a blueprint for what will be best for you. Is that a fair discussion? Oh yeah, Ray, totally. Okay, yeah, I'm willing to do that. Cool. So if you don't mind me asking, what do you have available currently in checking? Awesome. So we have 700 available in checking. Do we currently have any savings? Awesome. That's great, Jordan. A lot of people just rely on checking and never actually migrate any of that revenue or income over to savings. So good for you. What do you have available in there? Okay, you got 1,600 there. Awesome, awesome. And do you have any type of, 401k or other accounts or credit you can leverage potentially? I mean, I recommend, and again, totally on you, there's two camps here, right? If I can't afford it, I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to put it on credit. And I totally get that. But depending on your credit plan and your interest and your payback plans, a lot of times it's good to leverage credit using other people's money. Get into the program, get a return on your investment, pay that back within the first 30 to 60 days at cost, and then you're not anything out of pocket or out of your bank account, and you pay it back before the interest hits. So that's something we can also leverage. So guys, I can go into a few different avenues there, but I just first soften them up with that very relational question about, are you open to having a discussion, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week? And then in this guy, right, let's just say he had 2 grand available in a credit card as well, and that's what we came up with. So 700 in one account, 16 in the other, 2 grand in one. Okay, so my 5K program. What if we could do this? What if we could break it up into 3 payments of, what is that, guys, 1750 or whatever off the top of my head, something like that, right? Whatever that number is. What if we could break it up into 3 payments of 1750? You leverage your credit the first month. At minimum, we'll get you a return on that. I'm sure in no time. But you leverage that the first month payment. Second month, let's just say we haven't got things up and running. You'll still be putting more into your savings and checking, and you haven't spent anything out of pocket there. So worst case scenario, we dive into the checking or the savings second month, and then by then, I'm sure we're going to already have clients coming in and a return on revenue, and we'll settle up the third payment however you want. But if we could do that today, 1750 out of credit, and work out a payment plan for 30 days apart for the next two, is that something feasible so we could get you rocking and rolling, man? And boom. So I don't want to ever, I could have collected the whole 5K there if I really tried, right? 2 grand, I could have got, 4 grand, but I would have almost emptied his accounts. And like, I never want to put somebody in that position. So I want to have the open up conversation. I want to leave them money to pay their bills, to keep adding a little more, and leverage credit, leverage, whatever. In this case, could also leverage the savings if I had to, if we talked a little more about that and the checking covered his costs, and leverage savings for the first payment. But there's different ways to do that. That's just a good little overview and example. So, guys, I'm going to check the comments one more time, see if you had anything else. And then since I have a little time, I'm going to dive some more into some of the processes and some of the numbers we're seeing internally with our Audience Lab sales team specifically. That's the one I have the most metrics for because I'm a co-owner of the company. Makes sense. Give me 1 second. Let me just check if there's anybody else here in the comments. I know I didn't really hype this one too big this week or send out a lot of notifications, so I'm not sure if we have a ton of people on here. I usually don't even go look until after the fact when I do these live straight to the group. Cool. Yep. Isaac, you're watching there. Great tips. Awesome. Jordan, I think I answered or clarified your question with the fire emoji. Excellent. Good stuff. So, guys, really quickly, I think you guys should be able to see all my screens the way I shared. I'm hoping so. If not, if you guys can't see that I just switched into our company Slack, just somebody drop me a comment so I know, but I'm 99% sure you can. Sometimes this Facebook screen share gets weird. But I made a post today about like something I'm working on internally, and I'll show you some of the processes. But these are some of the results we're seeing. So internally, as a sales team and the sales team leader, one of the goals I set out for our team when I'm building out these new processes, and I knew it was going to be a little bit of a down month or down period while I'm building out new processes, and there's a little crossover, I guess. I don't know the right verbiage for it. But anyway, long story short, my goal is to get our team to 80K in MRR consistently month in and month out. And, with 7-8 days to go, we may actually hit it this month. I think we might come up a little short, but either way, we've been progressing month in and month out. And this is all new business. So I think if I added, and I know September's numbers were 73K in MRR. This month, I'm sure we're going to pass that, 99% sure, unless everything died, as a matter of fact. So 12:38 today, less than 2 hours ago, another sale just got logged in here to our business to be builder tier 2 product. So I didn't even check really today's updated numbers and stuff yet. But again, each day we're driven in new sales, and we've built the whole model basically internally to be almost all MRR. So you see the cash collected for the month is only about 5-6 grand more than the total MRR, because almost all of our products are monthly recurring revenue. Sometimes this comes in one-off accounts. Some of our more intricate accounts has a small setup fee, so we'll collect a little more up front, which is different than the MRR. But basically all the revenue is MRR with a little one-time additional fees. And again, we've even scratch that in most of our products now that we've got to where we need to be. Internally, we had to cover costs before, and that's why people have setup or activation fees. I think now we're to the point where we've scrapped it on most programs, other than the one where it really takes manual time and effort and team members, so that we have to cover the cost there. But either way, so that's like some of the numbers we're seeing. And again, that was just yesterday's report. Now, to do that, internally we have to have a game plan and metrics and all that stuff. So for instance, like this is the an example of the new tracker that I've rolled out specifically for our team. Don't know how relevant this is to a lot of you guys, if you guys are individual business owners, what have you. Does it not let me? Hold on 1 minute. Cool. So let me just go to like an example sheet here. So really quickly, let's just look at June. And again, my team hasn't even started this yet. I've built out some new structures. We have internal tracking and automations. And why I did this specifically is we had an internal audit done by an outside company. So I should say an external audit to our internal sales team. And kind of pointed out some things I already knew, but I needed to bat down on the communication, the structure, and the development within the reps and the leadership. So I built out some new systems, and we're already seeing, results starting to change pretty quickly in terms of what we wanted. But just let's look on June on here really quickly, line 10. Let's say for this rep, we had about 277 calls booked on his calendar for June. 148 showed. He closed 11 deals, which are very, very small numbers. Our team does much better, but I was just building out metrics. And the cash collected in that case was 22.3. The total revenue generated was 33. So just by entering those numbers each week, obviously the tracker is automatically doing these calculations, and it's showing me that my sales team, or this rep in particular, I should say, is closing at 66%. He's got a show rate of 53%. That's below our KPI. So now I got to go back and look at why that's wrong. Offer percentage, which just wasn't tracked here because I ran through this super quick and we're not implementing this. Close percentage, which again, I did this at a real low because our team has been, we had the updated numbers provided to me recently. We were between 25 and 40% for the last month. So obviously this was way low, but I was just building. Then this also tells us the cost as a business of what this revenue per booking costs with this rep, or what the cash collected or the cash spent per booking, on our end. So this is basically telling us which reps are performing better from our spend, which ones are getting us more revenue per booking, obviously the main metrics that are tracked. So this is a good example sheet that leads into some of our master data and master numbers. Our team provides call audits. You'll see at the bottom of the screen here, we have a few names. We have this many reps or so on the sales team that are going to start utilizing these specific sheets, because the reason I did this actually, guys, and I'll kind of show you here, our internal audit showed a bunch of bad data. So these numbers just weren't right, and why I want to go back to a bit of manual tracking. As most sales teams and as we evolved, we went a little away from manual tracking and started doing this with all automations and little softwares and all the gadgets that people are using nowadays. But what I found was, although it's tracking a lot of the activity, a lot of the booked calls, it's not tracking all the closed deals, all the revenue. There was just some gaps. So I can solve the gaps and figure out the automation so we no longer have to manually track. We have to go back to the team tracking for a month or two so I can find out where the gaps are. Because this is accurate, full numbers. Well, some of this is accurate, I should say. At least this first column is accurate. I believe this number is accurate. Once we got, and I believe this number is accurate, but this one specifically wasn't tracking cash collected and closed deals right at all, which was the big gaping hole that I noticed. Because I went back and saw these numbers saying in August our team closed at 4%. I was like, wait a minute. I mean, I know by tracking our stuff daily and seeing our closed deals channel what we're doing and the amount of calls being booked. So these numbers weren't right, but everything up till there was right. So number one, when you're getting an audit done, whether you're doing it internally, whether you have an external company, the data that's fed into that can only make, the audit that accurate, right? So like we say with anything, garbage in, garbage out. Same with Chat GPT. If you just put garbage in and you don't evolve it and use prompts and make it custom and make it speak like you, it's going to be crap, right? And it's going to be noticeable. Same with data on audits. So somewhere the data got screwed up, but let's just say, even though these last numbers are wrong, let me just run through it super quick. So these are the qualified leads we had each month, monthly qualified leads. August 395, July 512, June 592. So let's say we average 475. Okay. Then these are the amount of total booked calls. So our qualified leads that hit our pipeline to actually converted booked calls are pretty good. Anywhere from, we'll say 60% just by these numbers as an aggregate. And then the number that show up to the calls, 53, 36, and 16. All right, this is where these started to slip because our show rates are definitely much higher than this. I think our KPI is about 60%. And I know I've been tracking it individually with the reps the last couple of weeks, and these are all older ones, right? But these some of these numbers weren't accurate either. Closed deals definitely weren't right. Cash collected, yada yada yada. But long story short, I realized when somebody went in and went through all of our data, hey man, your closers suck and your show rate really needs to come up. And I'm like, okay, if this numbers was right, that'd be true, but now I need to find the gaps, right? So that's what I figured out. So kind of put together a bit of a strategic plan here and what we need to do. Built out new resources, and just to kind of dive into one more thing before I touch base for any other last minute. Guys, if you have any last minute questions or thoughts or comments about, what you picked up, go drop them in there before I go check them one last time. I want to bring up this sheet. Sorry, guys. Too many things up. So again, this will show you what I was talking about earlier in terms of numbers. You'll see September there. Our cash collected, we had one huge deal that came in, which was nice. Cash collected was a great month, and new MRR, each month we're getting higher and higher and closer to our goal of 80K. This month is still live and in real time, so these numbers are still growing. And as we grow as a company, outside of our one-off big deals, which we're probably only get one a month or one every other month. They're great. You can see they add six figures to the total bottom line. They're great. But our main focus is definitely the MRR, and these numbers outside of those one-off deals will be almost identical in terms of cash collected and MRR, the way we have our products and business model built out. But yeah, so we're, and we have everything tracked in here to, closers numbers, how much revenue each one of them is bringing in, total cash collected. Kudos to Mark on this last update. You're up to $500,000. Nice work there. Then we break down the call book data by month. So guys, this stuff is way more intricate, and we weren't doing any of this stuff till we were a much larger company. So again, I don't want to go into too much, but we built out all this structure and systems, and we just need everything to integrate and the data to be accurate. And again, man, in the last 2 weeks, while I've been really focused on building out this new process, looking into the systems, taking time to build out new trackers or whatever's needed for the reps, we're already seeing an increase in everything. I think yesterday's show rate was 19 out of 23 calls, if I'm not mistaken. So somebody could do the math real quick. We had 23 booked calls yesterday. I want to say 19 showed when I checked the booked call channel tracker, which is a mouthful. I'm surprised I didn't get that one tongue twisted. So yeah, quick little revamp, and this link I'm going to go drop down in these comments regardless, this main excuse me, let me go back to this main sheet I kind of covered here today, which was the 8 steps and kind of going through that. In between, I probably mentioned 3 or 4 other resources that I can send or have access to. DM me, let me know in the comments. But this one I'm going to go drop right in the live stream, that if anyone's watching right now, it'll be right in that thread where you either dropped a comment or I go back and check the comments. YouTube, this will already be down in the description, and leave anything else you guys might want or need in the comments. And lastly, let me go back and touch base and see what we got going on in the comments, if there's any last minute questions or thoughts. Back to the PDOCS group. I feel like this one went pretty well, and hopefully it dropped you guys some value. I mean, that's what I always try to do here, things you guys can execute, implement. Again, some of this stuff is definitely more extensive or elaborate than a lot of you guys watching. I'm aware of that. But, this first lesson, particularly these 8 steps, a lot of this stuff should be relevant, and you got to have, at minimum, one takeaway that you can go execute and implement, and that's what I want to see you guys do. Do you track how long people stay signed up for? Yes. You're talking about LTV and retention, 100%. That was probably within that document, Isaac, and I could show you sometime, but that's more on our fulfillment and client success side, where I was covering more of the sales and marketing resources today. So we do 100%, but we have different departments. Retention and fulfillment and client success, whole different team than our sales department, our marketing. I guess some of them have hybrid roles because that happens in companies based on skill sets, but regardless, they're compartmentalized in separate departments, and probably a lot of times separate resources. Let me see though, I might have retention on this one. If I don't have it here, I would have to. So active subscriptions. This is tracking who's still active month in and month out, and it's also tracking what merchant that we've used for them, because we do use multiple merchants here. So there is one more resource. Maybe I'm just not seeing it here. Yeah, we do have one more thing, and again, it might be in a different tracking sheet where it's showing all of our existing clients, what program they're in, which helps our reps know when to upsell. Some of you guys that follow our Audience Lab, for instance, we have like our entry-level package called the Incubator, and when we know somebody's been in there and they're getting results and they're attending the workshops, our rep can go, look, oh, this guy's in the Incubator, he's been getting great results, he's been attending all the things, we should go talk to him about potentially going up to the next package, right? Whatever. So we're tracking how long they're on, what program they're in, and when they fall into. So we in a sense, we have 2 sales processes. What I covered is all the outside sales and new business. And as I prefaced on this post, guys, all these numbers I'm showing you are new business. This is new monthly recurring. This is new monthly recurring. That's on top to what we already got. I'm not going to say it right here what our total monthly recurring revenue is on the platform, but any of my private students, I'm happy to share that stuff with you internally if you want to know. I don't know if that's really relevant or not. But more so, what I was going at is we kind of have a little different process internally. It's almost like our client success and support team does some of the upsells. A lot of times we want the sales rep to still get credit and go back to that. But some of the times within SaaS or software products specifically, it's a little more of a support sales type of process than just selling a high ticket coaching program or a course, right? That stuff's kind of like, once you sell it, it's pretty much sold. So there's some differences, and you may upsell, but you would upsell much differently again in high ticket coaching and courses than you do is in software and SaaS products. But yeah, to answer your question, we're definitely doing all that, and that stuff is very, very important. Part of the new MRR and why the push is because we've really fleshed out our retention and our LTV, and now it's at where we want, or probably even better right now. So once we limit the churn and the retention and we have that dialed in, we're really focusing on the new MRR, because now we know we can really hold it and keep it much better as a business. So great question there. I believe that was Isaac. Good stuff. All right, guys, I will follow up with the comments. I will drop the resources down below here shortly. And next week's PDOCS live stream is the opposite week, which, just to reiterate, I haven't done one of these lesson ones in a few weeks. And if you guys are new or you're not sure, only when I teach a lesson and I don't have a guest, I stream straight to the group. It's just easier. When I have a guest, I go into my private Zoom room so I can have more participation. People join Q&As, and it just makes it a little easier. So next week is the week with another special guest. They were already pre-booked out weeks ago. I'm going to be happy to announce this one, and I always do that, the week of. So sometime Monday or Tuesday, I'll drop the post with next week's guest speaker for the live stream series. And please just, again, let me know in the comments, DM me, whatever, what you took of value or, what you liked about this, and if there's ways I can improve. Awesome, guys. Thanks for your attention, your time, and go implement and go execute. Go make some damn money. See you guys.